I want to tell you about a night that changed everything for me. It was back in October of 2024. It was just a few days before my birthday. I was sitting alone on my couch in my luxury apartment. Outside my driveway, I had my brand new Jaguar F-Pace. It was silver, V8, badass, plenty of money in the bank, a job that paid well. Everything that a man was supposed to have and wanted in life was sitting right there within arm's reach. My dogs were gone. I'm sitting there all alone because my parents, they took my dogs away because a couple nights before I'd gotten so messed up that I lost one of them. Just one. It was all because I was in a drunken stupor that I couldn't even fully account for. There I was that night. I sat there all alone, dogs gone. And I looked around at everything I had, all the things I'd built, and I felt absolutely nothing. Not gratitude, not pride, not relief. I wasn't even excited that my dog had been found. I just felt fucking empty. Sadness, despair. And it hit me in a way that I'd never had before. That Jaguar that was out in the driveway, it stopped making me feel like a man. The money in the bank that could buy anything I wanted, but it couldn't buy me the one thing that I actually needed. And that was just to feel content, to feel satisfied, to feel like my life meant something. I had achieved everything that I thought I was supposed to achieve in life. And I was feeling like a complete failure. Not because life had treated me unfairly, because I had refused for years, with every excuse available to me, to take responsibility for the man that I was becoming. That night, on that couch, I made a decision that I'm going to talk to you about today. Because I think the most important decision a man can make, most men spend their entire lives avoiding it, is the one that we're going to talk about today. Stay with me. I want to talk about an idea that has been passed around in the self-development world for years now. And I want to talk about it honestly, because I think most people either dismiss it too quickly or apply it in the completely wrong way, which actually ends up making everything worse. The idea is simple. You are responsible for everything in your life. Everything. You've probably heard some version of this before, from David Goggins to Jocko Willink, from every military background motivational figure who ever has stood in front of a camera and told you to stop making excuses. Here is my honest take after living this philosophy for the last 16 months. They are right. There is a version of this message that is genuinely dangerous, and I want to separate the two before we go any further. The dangerous version says, everything is your fault. Now, the useful version says, everything is your responsibility. Now, those two things sound similar, but they're not. Fault looks backward. It is about blame. It's about who caused what. Whereas responsibility looks forward. It's about response. It's about what are you going to do next, regardless of how you got here. Here's why that distinction matters. I had a legitimate reason to use my injury as an excuse. At 40 years old, I had a hemiarthroplasty, which is a fancy word for a shoulder replacement, on my right shoulder. The entire joint was taken out as a direct result of service to my country. The surgery, while it eliminated all the pain, guess what? It left me with a permanent deficit. I cannot raise my arm above 90 degrees. I cannot bear significant weight with it. In my prime, I could dumbbell press 140-pound dumbbells for reps. I can't even press 30-pound dumbbells today. There are women in the gym who can outlift me. I can't do a single push-up. I can't do a pull-up. I can't throw a ball. I can barely reach behind my back to wipe my rear end. That is all real. It's documented. That's not an excuse, it's a fact. I used that as an excuse for years, not because I was lying, because it was true. And true things make the most convincing excuses. Here is what personal responsibility has taught me about that injury. I was not at fault for what happened to my shoulder. That was the consequences of military service. It happened. I didn't choose it. I could not have prevented it. I was completely responsible for what I did with the body that I was left with. Those are two completely different things. And the moment I stopped arguing about fault and started asking what I was responsible for is when everything in my life changed. So I want to go back to the night that we're sitting on the couch. Because that night that I described at the beginning of this episode was not the first time that I'd hit a low point in life. It wasn't even close. I had been on a losing streak for years. Addiction, poor decisions, consequences. I could see coming, and still I walked directly into them. They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. I was definitely insane by this point because I would do the same thing and get the same freaking result. And every single time something went wrong, I had an explanation. The circumstance was unfair. The system was broken. Other people had advantages I didn't have. My injury limits what I was able to do in life. The timing was wrong. Every explanation was partially true. That's the thing. That is the thing about excuses. The best ones have real evidence behind them. Here's what I finally understood. Sitting on that couch, late evening, October, with my Jaguar outside, all the money in the bank, the job. I had lost my dogs because I was so out of it that I could not be trusted with the things I love most. No external circumstance did that. That was my fault. Not because the world was unfair, not because my parents were being rude, or not because my injury made life harder, not because the system had failed me, because I had been making choices consistently, repeatedly, over and over that prioritized my immediate comfort over the man that I was supposed to become. In that moment, I stopped defending those choices and I started owning up to the things I was doing completely. Not the shame, not with self-flagellation, not with guilt that just made me want to drink more, but with genuine ownership. Something inside me fundamentally shifted in that moment. Because here is the gift that no one tells you about when you take full responsibility for the things in your life. When the problem is yours, guess what? So is the solution. It is also yours. If the reason my life is a disaster, if it's because it's external, it's the economy or bad luck or unfair circumstances or the result of other people, then the solution is also external and I am powerless to create it. If the reason is my life is a disaster because of me, then I have the power to do something about it. Because that right there is a burden that I can fix. Now, most people always rely on external circumstances and they don't work on their inner game. Now, I feel liberated that I have faced this truth that I have encountered. Everything in my life is my fault, which means everything is within me and it's within my power to change. Let me explain something to you about why taking personal responsibility is genuinely difficult. Because I think if you understand the psychology of it, you are more likely to actually do something about it rather than just nod along and listen to me as I freaking blab my gums. You ultimately go back to your old patterns. The human brain is wired to protect your self-image. When something goes wrong, the first instinct is not to look inward. It is to look outward, to find an external cause, the unfair circumstance, the person who wronged you, the system that worked against you. Psychologists call this the self-serving bias. We attribute our successes to our own unique qualities, but our failures to external factors. Funny how that works. And it's not a character flaw. It's how our brain is designed. And here's the problem with that design when it comes to personal growth. If you are never responsible for what goes wrong in your life, you are also never the source of what can go right. You become the passenger in your own life. And you're waiting for other people to do the right thing. You're waiting for the world to become fair enough that success is finally available to you at some point. And that wait, it'll never end. I know this because I waited through my 30s. I wasted an entire decade. Here is what has shifted for me when I finally stopped waiting and I started using what the psychologists call internal locus of control. The belief that your actions and your decisions are the primary driver of what happens in your life rather than the luck of external forces. Now, research consistently shows that people with a strong internal locus of control have better mental health, higher achievements, greater resilience, and stronger recovery outcomes from things like addiction. Not because life actually gives them more control, because they stop wasting their energy on things they cannot control And they redirect that same energy towards the things that they can, such as your mindset, your choices, your habits, your response to adversity. These are yours completely, regardless of what else is happening around you. Here's the nuance I want to be clear about because I think it really matters. I am not telling you that everything that happens to you in your life is your fault. I am not telling you that how you respond to everything that happens to you is your responsibility. Those are two completely different conversations. The first one is about the past. You cannot change the past. But the second one, it's about right now. You have complete authority over the here and now, the present. Right now is where your life is actually being built with whatever choice you choose to make. Now, instead of just bumping my gums, I like to give you something practical to take away. So here's something practical because I am not interested in leaving you with philosophy that sounds good, but produces nothing. Here is what extreme ownership actually looks like when you apply it to your life, not just in theory. In the specific daily decisions that you determine what those will be, they will determine who you become. The first thing looks like this. You stop explaining, you start asking. When something goes wrong, and something will always go wrong, the undisciplined response is to explain why it happened, to build a case for why it was not your fault, to find the external factor that caused the outcome. The disciplined response is to ask one question. What part of this did I contribute to? What can I do differently? Not who is to blame. What can I do? That single shift in your question you ask yourself will produce different results than anything else I can tell you. The second thing extreme ownership looks like is that you stop waiting for conditions to be right. I used my injury as a reason to not train the way I once trained. And that was legitimate. I generally cannot train the way that I used to train. My physical limitation is real. What was not legitimate was using that limitation as a reason to stop working out completely. I had to find a different way, a new approach, a different standard that accounted for what I had while still putting some demand on my body, also realizing that there is in fact a degree of limitation. Today, at my age, with a permanent right arm disability, I am in better physical condition than 97% of the people in my demographic, let alone people 20 years younger than me. Not because I overcame my limitation, because I stopped letting my limitation make decisions for me. Now, the third thing extreme ownership looks like is building the evidence. Responsibility is not a feeling. It is not a declaration. It is not a motivational speech you give yourself in the mirror. It is a record. Every kept promise, that is evidence of a responsible man. Every commitment that you honor when it would have been easier not to, that's evidence. Every morning you get up and do what you said you would do, that's evidence. That record builds something that external success can never manufacture, which is self-trust. And that self-trust is the foundation of everything. That Jaguar sitting out in my driveway did not give me self-trust. The money in my bank account did not give me self-trust. The job I had did not give me self-trust. Getting up on Sunday morning after being arrested on Friday and doing every single thing I said I would do, that gave me self-trust because that was mine. No one can take it away. Don't let anyone take it away from you. Nobody can manufacture it for me. Nobody gave it to me. I built it. One decision at a time, in private, when no one else was watching except for me. I want to say one thing before I close this out, because I believe in this extreme ownership completely. And I also believe in honesty completely. Honesty requires me to acknowledge something. Not everything that happens to you is your fault. That's truth. The world is genuinely an unfair place. Systems are broken. People are hurt by circumstances they did not create and they could not control. Bad things happen to people who made the right choices. And I'm not dismissing that. What I am saying is that there's a critical difference between acknowledging reality and then being consumed by it. You can acknowledge that the world is an unfair place and still refuses to let that acknowledgement become your reason for not trying. You can acknowledge that you have been genuinely wrong and still choose not to build your identity around being a victim for the rest of your life. You can acknowledge that some obstacles in your life are not your fault. You can still take full ownership of how you choose to respond to them. The Stoics, understood this 2,000 years ago. There are things you control. Your beliefs, your character, your effort, your response to what happens. There are things that you do not control. External events, other people, the outcome of your actions, the fairness of the world. They did not say, pretend the second category does not exist. They said, pour all your energy into the first category and stop bleeding energy into the second one. That is the philosophy I live by. Not because it's easy, because it is the only one that actually produces results worth. Let me bring this home with the most honest thing that I can say. October 2024, couch, apartment, Jaguar outside, dogs are gone, arrested again. That night was not the world's fault. It was 100% mine. Every choice that led to that couch, every compromise I made that slowly became my standard. Every morning I picked the bottle over the promise I had made to myself. Every excuse I had constructed from the real and the legitimate circumstances so I would not have to face the real and legitimate truth, those are all mine. And the moment that I owned that shit completely, without reservation, without qualification, was the moment my life actually changed. Not because owning it felt good, because owning it meant I could do something about it. Here's your challenge, my friend. Think about one area in your life right now where you've been pointing outward, at a circumstance, at other people, at bad luck, at the system, at anything other than the man in the mirror. Ask yourself honestly, what part of this is mine? Maybe it's not all of it. Maybe not even most of it. What part of it is yours? Find that part. Own it completely. Ask the only question that ever freaking matters. What am I going to do about it? Starting today, not Monday, not after things calm down, not once the circumstances change, today. Because a year from now, you could be going somewhere. The only question is whether the man standing there made some decisions or just let life continue to make them for him. I know which man I chose to be. Now it's your turn. One last thing before we go. This channel exists because I believe the lessons I have lived are worth sharing, not because my life is perfect. You have heard enough of this episode to know that is not true. I believe I have been through enough to know that change is real and possible and available to any man who's willing to do the work. If this episode gave you something, if even one thing landed, I got one simple request, man. Subscribe. It takes 2 seconds. And it means this channel reaches the next man who needs it. Leave a comment. Tell me one area where you're choosing to take ownership starting today. I read each and every single one of these and I respond. Share this with someone, a man who needs to hear it. Not a long message, just send it to him. That is how the community grows. That is how the next man finds what he needs the most. You guys know who I am. I'm Ken Lane. And this is Diaries of Masculine Men. This is where we all show up, we tell the truth, and we build something real. I'll see you next Sunday like always. Remember, be ready to work.